Move, Lincoln.
Link, move, 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 move.
Bam! There's a head on a block.
We still gotta go and pick out the best head bolts one too though.
Yeah, I already got that set up.
Did you?
I use 3M pad, like the steel wool, or like an emery cloth, and some WD-40. Alright, so the next point is going to be putting head bolts in and torquing them down. But the Longblock is now officially mated, except for oil pan and valve cover, obviously. Just need to get the bolts in, get them torqued down, which only takes a second. Then do the timing. Probably will leave intake and exhaust manifold for now. Got to put the coolant tube on. A couple other small things, oil pan. All the bolts are now new in the head. It had a couple holes helicoiled. Put a couple of new sensors in it. Got a new O-ring for the distributor. The head's freshly rebuilt. The bottom end is rebuilt. Got to put the oil cooler onto the block and a couple other small things, and then put it on an engine hoist. Put the flywheel and clutch on. Mate the bell housing of the tranny. Get that tightened down, and then it's pretty much ready to go in the car, and then we can do intake and exhaust manifold after the engine is actually on the mounts in the car. We can start buttoning stuff up. So that's what's coming. I'm just waiting for some head bolts, and then I will torque them down. Alright, got the head bolts right here. And about to put them in, and this thing will be official. And then 17 mil. That's how big bolts are.
You said 17?
Yep.
Oh, you don't want to start right though.
No, 6 point. Washer. You never, ever want to forget one of those washers, man.
No.
That would be bad juju. 25.
That would just fuck your old block up, wouldn't it? If you drove that thing in too deep?
Yeah.
Fucking broke that.
Oh, I need an extension.
Okay, of course you do.
Now, when you're torquing one of these down, you start in the center,
One, two.
bolt over. Then you skip over one, hit that one, skip over one, hit that one, in a spiraling pattern out. When you're doing these,
there's actually a specific sequence that wants you to do in the book. Like
yeah, I've always done it this way. It's always bam, 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 bam.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Yeah.
And it seats the head evenly on
you
the.
start outside and work your way in, you get a bubble in there.
Yeah, or you can create a pinch in the gasket or whatever. This just spreads it out, and then when you're detorquing it, it's the opposite sequence.
Yeah.
You start at the outside and go to the inside. Factory recommended torque specs are 59 to 64 foot-pounds, I think, and I do 75 because we use non-torqued yield head bolts that are 10 millimeter from the factory, so they're big boys from the factory. And it adds clamp load to a really weak head gasket, and it helps with head seating. I've melted 3 pistons. Well, I've melted 2 pistons and broke 2 sets of ring lands, so 4 engines in total, and I've broken pistons, melted spark plugs, broken spark plugs, head gasket never popped. So this is anything up to about 350-ish wheel horsepower. The stock head bolts are plenty sufficient. Then you start getting into cylinder pressures, which can stretch them. So that's when you want to start considering using an ARP stud. But this engine is not going to be seeing that kind of load for a very long time. And
It's
when it does,
power.
we can do ARP head studs in car. We don't have to pull the engine out to do them. So we could even use the same head gasket, because as long as we don't disturb the head, we won't disturb the seal. All it will do is uncompress the gasket, and then when you torque it back down with the head studs, it'll recompress it and it'll seal just fine. So the first thing you want to do is get these hand tight, obviously. Make sure you're not doing any cross threading. Make sure you don't have any weird resistances. It shows that they have messed up threads. So getting them hand tight is the first step. I just got oil on my hands, so it makes it slippery and it's hard to turn it.
You're just doing one big take and editing after?
Yeah, pretty much. This sequence I want to do all in one. Where's it? Do you have a wrench? I just need a wrench so I can just turn that the last bit of the way. Thank you. So, it all figures. Then it bottoms out right when I put a wrench on it.
You're done.
Son of a bitch.
But yeah, this one's just going to make reliable power all day long.
Yep, and it will. It's got the same non-turbo pistons as mine. Nice, fresh, rebuilt head.
There we go. You caught up on the spring and you were just spinning it.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Looks a little tight in there, doesn't it?
This is a little bit of a thick socket. You want to grab a normal chrome socket?
That's all I have.
This is an impact socket.
I know, but for 6 point.
It'll be fine. A long socket still. Just a normal long socket. I know you have a normal 17 mil long socket and a half inch. I've seen it. I've used it. Yeah, see the difference in thickness between those?
Yeah.
That's why this doesn't fit, because it's an impact socket.
Right. But it's the only 6 point I have.
That's
I don't have any 6 point, so
it'll work. These head bolts are such a hard material, they will not strip.
Yeah.
Come on, baby. I'm not giving them any torque, but I still go in sequence just in case any clamp has added to the head gasket, that it will be in the correct way. You're getting your head awfully close to this wrench spinning.
Are you sure you're not spinning that wrench awfully close to my head?
Your head's in my way.
Just looking at these beautiful.
Alright, so 25 foot-pounds is the first torque mount. There's one. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. So that's the first bit of the torque sequence, which is 25 foot-pounds. You want to do it in steps just so it doesn't over-clamp one part of the head gasket over another. as you're going through. So I'm going to jump this up to 50. Oh, it went way past. Way past. 40, 50. Now this is going to really seat the head gasket at this point. One.
So the other thing, you think you can kick it up against that pole?
I'm just going to put my foot in front of it. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now the reason why I count those every time I'm going through is to make sure I don't skip any. I know what the sequence is, but sometimes, you know, you're standing at a different angle, so you won't see the heads of some bolts and you just forget. It's a common mistake that happens with people, so I always make sure to count them as I go. I know there's 10 head bolts, so if I get to 10, I know, since I did it in a specific sequence, that I got all the head bolts. Second thing is, yes, you can reuse these head bolts. I've reused the current set that's on my car that did the stock turbo intercooler world record, did the stock injector untuned world record for power, and had 5 engine failures, and none of them were related to the head bolts. The head gasket never blew, head was always clamped nicely, and I reused those and over torqued them over factory specs every time. So these bolts are very strong. So the next sequence will be 75 foot-pounds, which is going to be fun.
And final.
Because this is a very small torque wrench to do that heavy of a sequence, but you work with what you can.
You don't want to put a breaker bar on it though. But the problem is, if I get a 3/4 inch torque wrench, then I need 3/4 inch sockets,
Yep.
3/4 inch extensions.
Alright, 75. Four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and finally 10. Now here's the most important part. On the final sequence, you always go back over one more time and just click the wrench to make sure, because sometimes when you're seating different bolts in different places, it somehow unloads a certain part of the head and it will turn a tiny bit before it hits 75 again. So you always want to go back over one final time and just click the wrench. Make sure that all of them indeed got hit. That one turned a little bit right there. That one turned a little bit. That one also turned a little bit. See, this is why you always go back over. It just ensures every single bolt has exactly the same torque. And you don't have any stragglers that are 1 or 2 foot-pounds under. So out of 10 bolts, 4 of them turned a slight amount again on that last run, and that's why you always do that. But now we have an assembled long block. Alright, so now the windage tray and oil pump pickup are on. Completely assembled long block. I'm about to put some more right stuff on and do the oil pan. And then this will be a totally assembled long block. The rear main seal housing's on with the new rear main seal and rear main seal housing gasket. This puppy is almost a completely assembled long block. Now I have here a fully assembled long block. Windage tray, oil pan, oil pump pickup are on. It's timed with the new timing belt, tensioner pulley, water pump, oil pump, freshly rebuilt head, new rings, new bearings, new dowels. So this puppy is pretty good. All new seals everywhere you can think of, front main, rear main, camshaft seals. So she ready.